We'll begin this conversation first taking a quote from Thomas Edison, who is an American inventor and businessman. He once said, "Be disabled physically, not in spirit. Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The surest way to succeed is always to try just one more time." Absolutely spot on. My next quote is from Stephen Hawking, who is an English theoretical physicist, cosmetologist, and author. He once said, "Concentrate in the abilities your disability doesn't hinder, and don't swell on the things it interferes with." All right, my next one will be from Francis Bacon, an English philosopher and statesman. He actually served as the Attorney General and Lord Chancellor of England under King James I. He once said, "We rise to great heights by a winding staircase of small steps." Absolutely spot on. My last one will be from Mary Kay Ash, who is an American businesswoman and founder of Mary Kay Cosmetics. She once said, "Aerodramatically, the bumblebee shouldn't be able to fly, but the bumblebee doesn't know that it's so goes on flying anyway." It doesn't know that it's supposed not to fly, but who cares? It keeps flying. I will take my last one, and this one is from Bethany Hamilton, who is an American professor, surfer, and writer who survived a 2023 shark attack in which her left arm was bitten off, and who ultimately returned to professional surfing. She once said, "I don't need easy, I just need possible." Okay. Don't you just love this quote? Now let's see how this quote relates to what we'll be discussing today. Very warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation. We're reaching you from KAFTAN's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle G. Institutions are manned by individuals, and individual attitudes shape the environment. That was slow. Go back. Now let's see how this quote relates to what we'll be discussing today. Very warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation. We are reaching you from KAFTAN's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Oji. Now, institutions are manned by individuals, and individual attitudes shape the environment. So when the attitude of a community are negative towards a particular vulnerable group, they will struggle so much more to realize their potential. Persons with disabilities in Nigeria persistently face stigma, discrimination, and barriers to accessing basic social services and economic opportunities. For one, persons with disability experience negative attitudes at family and community levels, including name-calling, negative beliefs, and misconceptions surrounding the cause of their disability, usually associated with religious or cultural norms and beliefs. As one woman with a physical disability in Jos once put it, some people say that the reason why she is visually impaired is because she committed a sin. That's what she said. And that is a very big fat lie. This negative attitude manifests in rejection, neglect, loss of respect and identity, or denial of identity or self-worth, and often result in low self-esteem, depression, and isolation also. This, along with structural limitations and challenges, also reinforce barriers for persons with disability in accessing basic services such as education, health, transport, social safety nets, and amongst others. But then, I'm not here to talk about the challenges that you already aware of. That's the challenges that they face. My question here today is, what is the way forward? How do we solve this anomaly? These are the issues that top our conversation with my guest today. Joining us virtually, he is Yinka Olaito, Executive Director, Center for Disability and Inclusion Africa. He is also the Executive Director, Africa Foundation for Young Media Professionals. And we'll be having this conversation with Yinka Olaito. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Conversation, and I will be your host. Welcome back. Let's go straight to our conversation for today. And I already told you, or I already introduced my guest. He is Yinka Olaito, who is the Executive Director, Center for Disability and Inclusion African. He also doubles as the Executive Director, Africa Foundation for Young Media Professionals. Great to have you on the show today, sir.
Good morning, Aminabel, and good morning, everyone.
Great. Good morning to you, sir.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity.
Great. All right, now let's start let's start. We always like to get people to tell us their story. Let's start from you, Yinka Olaito. Why exactly are you interested? What is the interest in people living with disability? Is there a personal story you'd like to share or experience?
Now, there are two angles to it. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm also always very proud of my story. It's what makes Yinka Olaito is what it is. I had always wanted to be a journalist, to be the voice for the voiceless. One of other things that of interest to me is the fact that I always want to speak for people, particularly those um, who do not have voice. So the first interest in person with disability is the fact that while growing up, I noticed some of the challenges people with disability have. I wasn't born with any deformity per se, but as I grew up, my parents began to notice that there's a slight deformity on my right face, and we were trying to go to hospital here and there and there. And because I know that when you actually have quality education, you can get a voice. So I told my parents, let's focus more on me getting a quality education. After which, I think that every other thing will sort itself out. So I had to begin to pursue quality education over the health, since fortunately it does no harm to me personally. It's just that the deformity in the face, that's only the challenge, nothing more than that. I don't suffer pain, I don't suffer anything except from maybe stereotypical people staring at you and all that. So, but it didn't mean so much to me. I'm so happy I have the right people on my side, my friend, my relative, all of them, they love me. And for me, that's important when you have people who love you around and they challenge you to be the best. But that's how it was until I finished my university, and I started practicing as a journalist, which is one of my career choice from day one as a child. I don't wanted to be either a journalist or a lawyer. So I found myself in journalism and practiced as a freelance for years and still do some other job as a communication specialist for other organization and all that. So we continue to do this until when we started African Foundation for Young Media Professional, which is a media skill development for early career journalists and mid-career journalists and broadcasters across Africa. One of the core projects that we do or that we run in that NGO, that media skill development nonprofit, is called Disability and Inclusion Reporting. As we begin to do this, we discover that there are more interest in it. We discover that the voices of the person with disability are not heard in the media, and that leads to a lot of ignorance, and people mistreat them. And we discovered that media also do not have the enough capacity to actually report on them. So this gave us an idea that it will not just be media reporting or teaching media alone, but to have a specialized nonprofit that is focused on policy, human rights, and as well as other issues that face them. So we have Center for Disability and Inclusion focusing majorly on protecting the human rights of person with disability, which is also had become part of something that I love because I knew what I went through as a child. Sometimes people stare at you people discriminate at you at a position where you are qualified to get a job. I remember one of those days, I was about 7, 8 years ago, I was actually applying to work with an international organization as media spokesperson at the country level. Interestingly, the country director focuses more on my look than my skill. And
Ah,
most of the question that they asked was about 60 to 70% of the question he asked me was about how do I look and all that. And I was saying if I was abroad or if I live in the Western nation, this man could go to jail. And therefore, because of that, the country director, the deputy country director on the table of the interview too, was a bit concerned, and I could see her unease. But I've been used to things like that as a small child,
okay.
and at this age, I don't think that doesn't really give me a lot of concern anymore. But more importantly, I believe that now that I have a voice, so to say, not no pride intended, I should be able to speak for a person with disability, and that's the essence of Center for Disability and Inclusion Africa, which is
Okay.
fighting and pushing for human rights, policy, job rights, and discrimination against persons with disability across Africa.
So is there any other interest? Is this profit inclined, or is it just to ensure that those who don't have a voice are given a voice to speak?
Interestingly, we are not funded by anybody.
Ah,
That does not mean that we are running away from funding. No. We are open to funding from different organizations, both local and international, and to challenge the person with disability. Because one of the things we've discovered with person with disability across our work is the fact that most of them have low self-esteem because of the way society has treated them. And see, your self-esteem need to be high for you to be able to present yourself. You don't have to allow what people in the society tell you for before you can stay by it. So we discovered that even person with disability, most of them have self-esteem. 85% of working with them across the state, we discovered that they have self-esteem. And because of that, a lot of discrimination against them are going on unnoticed. And I thank God for a few that have self-esteem or who are built. And you can't have self-esteem except you are empowered. That's a fact. And
all
so
right.
we go around to really empower them. Look at what happened to Debola Daniels last week. It's
Okay,
because the
Mr.
kind
Olaito, we will definitely come to Debola's matter, but let's stay on people with disability generally. Now, because you talked about self-esteem, I hear some of them tell you that, okay, please, I don't want to be pitied. Now, would kindly speak for them, for people with living with disability. Do they like to be seen as people who need charity, like as a charity case, or they prefer to be given what is rightfully theirs?
an average human being prefers dignity over being treated like you are not important. Let me tell you. You know, the problem is this. Over the years, the approach to person with disability has been the issue of charity and the issue of humanitarian. That's the way we treat them. We want them to, we treat them, everything we give to them is act of mercy. And in fact, when they want to make their effort or try, sometimes people say, you too. It's these people like you that we're talking. And so far, so over the years, what they've had, what they have been told, what the society has told them, what religion has told them. In fact, in some cases, while we're working with some person with disability group in one of the states in Nigeria, they said that even religion also had insult upon injury because the way even the Bible talk about them as in Yoruba they call them abirun, that is disabled, and then the fact that they even the scripture or some of the holy writ is clear about the fact that if you are a disabled, if you are a person with disability or impairment, you are not supposed to live with people. And therefore, because religion had carried this all over every year, so everybody with you, you will discover that even in the Christian faith, religion, lepers are not to stay with people. They're supposed to stay outside. They're not even to meet with people. And there are other form of disability aside from that. There are invisible disability where people who conforce and all that, they are not allowed to meet with people. So they've been segregated for years. They've been told they are not persons who should be around other people. And because of all these information and orientation, most of them had felt that they do not matter. So over time, they begin to accept what is available, not what they deserve. So it's not a case that most of them do not want to be treated as human beings, but because the society and our belief, our religious organization has seen them as unimportant people who should be pitied because of the charity and humanitarian approach to issue of person with disability. So when you look at all these, you'll find out that the charity approach has really done a lot of damage to their psyche, so that they do, most of them, particularly most who do not have education, most who are not empowered, that's where they are open to all form of abuses. Interestingly, when you look at it, some of these abuses are coming from people that are close to them, and they cannot actually report. Because if you are visually impaired and you depend on other people, if you cannot move around, if you have a mobility issue, you cannot move around, you depend more largely on family and friends. And so if you report family and friends who abuse you, you eventually have nobody to take care of you. They will just tell you, I'm even helping you. You are going to report. Okay, after that, I will not be available there for you again. So when you look at it, most of what we call abuses, most of what we call discrimination start from their home, because even in the family, they are not given a voice. So when you look at that, it's not because an average PWD person does not want to be given his right, but because over time they have been abused, they have been discriminated against, that they've been seen as nobody in the society, and eventually they just conclude that their lot is just to beg, except for few who are educated, for few who are empowered, for few who know their right. How many of you don't even know their right? Some of them cannot even read their right. If you don't have education, that's a big minus for you. You and I know that. There's a limit to which your confidence level can rise if you don't have education, either informal or formal. So you discover that most of the persons with disability who live in the rural environment do not have quality education. They do not even have education at all, because when you go to our schools are not configured. Even the one in urban health center, they are not configured to accommodate them, not to not talk of those in the rural places. Right. And you discover that a lot of things are not there for them to go to school. So eventually you find that most of them in the rural areas particularly, they are not educated. And if you're not educated in this age, there's a limit to what you can do. There's a limit to what the level of compensation you can have today. And there's a limit to what the level of technology you can access. And if you cannot access all this, your hope is almost is zero.
Now, so I hear you talk about those who are influential, those who have access to information, education, and all. But then let me ask you, when injustice to one is injustice to all, regardless of their abilities or their disability, it's injustice to everyone. But now, if those who are influential, those who have access to the education that you talk about, and they are disabled, they have one form of disability or the other, if they are being discriminated against, you will always hear the hue and cry everywhere. People would definitely come for those who discriminated them, or those who are trying to trample or bully them. They would come for their guts immediately. But then, what of that person who has elephantiasis, who is on the street? What of that street beggar who is being pushed around or being bullied? Who speak for such people, Olaito?
That's why a number of ways like hers exist, that PWD right is a human right. It is not an humanitarian issue. So we speak, I give you an instance. We were in Oyo State the other time, and we are speaking with, we came in contact with, in one of our programs, we came in contact with a professional teacher who is a wheelchair user, mobility impaired, and he had problem with bank. You know that most of person with disability, even if they are educated, financial inclusion is also a major issue. And I tell you why. Some of the app that the banks have, for a visually impaired person, they may not be able to use it. And even if you can use it, because there's a level at what you can see as a visually impaired person, the app may not be readily available. I give you another instance where there's financial inclusion. People with albinism, they have complained that ATM, the light there is very minimal, and most of the time they cannot see it because of their low vision. Almost every person with albinism had complained about that. That's financial inclusion. Even if you are educated and you know how to operate an ATM, but if the vision there, if you have a low vision, you can. So I come back to this individual, a teacher who had been robbed of opportunity to actually transact business. And therefore, he said that because he's a wheelchair user, he is not allowed into the bank, because you know that there are always security doors that will not allow iron to pass. And so we called the attention of the bank. We write, because we also have a media section where we have a new newspaper. We wrote to them. We did an interview calling on the bank that it is the right of this person to have access to his money. He is a teacher and all that. And because we put this in the media, the bank responded. And at the end of the day, they were able to create a leeway where he can access his money, and they gave him other method by which he can come inside the bank when he is ready. So what am I trying to say? The fact remains that people like us out in the as an organization, it is our role to shout out and to call attention on people. That's why we assist. Most of them may not be able to say anything. In fact, they are bullied. Some of them are bullied, and they've really mentioned that they've been bullied for years. What can they do? As much as we have, because we have advocacy section within the Center for Disability and Inclusion, we advocate for all these challenges that they face. We call upon the necessary agent or actors who is doing that. For instance, we have been advocating for a public transport system that allow a person with wheelchair to enter the buses. And in Lagos now, Lagos is working upon having electric buses that can actually allow a person who is using a wheelchair, mobility impaired, to be able to access without having somebody to pick them up or help them inside. You also know that it is also a discrimination against a person with disability for a bus, for a bus or a transport operator not to completely stop for a person with disability to disembark from their buses. Most of the time, particularly if you live in a city like Lagos, where everything is in a hurry, people have to jump in and jump out. We're already advocating for that. For a person with disability, the bus needs to stop permanently, to stop fully and all that. And in terms of financial inclusion, we're already advocating for those people that, please, they need to be included in the financial sector, because most of the structures in financial industry is not really including person with disability, either with visual impairment or slow mobility.
All right, so we'll come back to all those that you've just mentioned with regards to what can be done for them. We'll come back there again. But now, because you mentioned the case that happened between the former governor's son a few days ago and KFC, now I'm wondering, why exactly do you think that happened? Because I've got so many questions coming from social media. Comments have been buzzing all through that time. That why exactly do you think that such thing could have happened, especially coming from that brand? Is it an excuse of ignorance that they didn't know better? Or is it a problem of the location? Probably they did not know the person, because I'm sure that's not even supposed to be an issue at all. But somebody actually said, Nigerians, we like eye service. What exactly, is it that the brand did not know better, or it's a problem of ignorance from that location?
I think it's a problem of ignorance. It's a problem. I keep saying that one of the challenges that our people and society have is ignorance of the law that guide your attitude toward a person with disability. Unfortunately, the brand in question should know better, because it's an international brand. But even though they offer excuses, I'm quick to say again that that brand have been accused in different countries of their discrimination against a person with disability. So I will now say that it is something that is peculiar to Nigeria. It's not because the Nigerian staff do not know. That brand have been accused of not being friendly or inclusive, because most of the complaint about people about the brand with regards to people with person with disability is not only Nigeria based. So I think it is one of the things I will say is that it is ignorance of the law. They do not know the law and they are not abiding by it. But let's now say, interestingly, you can see that the fact that you are ignorant of the law does not mean that you'll be excused. The state has to appropriate the law where they have to close the brand in Lagos, because there's an existing law in Lagos that says that such act is a discrimination against a person with disability. Even at the national level, there is an existing law which states that discrimination against person with disability attracts penalty or jail, both, depending on which of them. So I will say that that's the problem with the society. If you are not informed, every organization are being charged is being charged today to be inclusive and to put everything that will make inclusive society operational in their work system. Unfortunately, that's what we have in Nigeria. But if it had been everywhere. But more importantly, let me also stress the fact that this individual, Debola Daniels, got attention very fast, because he is the son of a big person, and because he's also informed. If you look at it, he started the campaign. He went online using his Twitter. He went online using his video. How many PWD can actually do that? So that's why we say education important, empowerment is important. When you are empowered and you know the right, he knows his rights and he asks for his right, because he felt that this is not the ideal thing. Now, I can bet with you there are hundreds and hundreds of PWD like Debola Daniels across Nigeria that are suffering daily because they do not know their right, they are not empowered, they do not have what it takes to actually complain. Interestingly, our media organization, I belong to that industry too, we have underreported issues. We have done a lot of this harm to persons with disability because we are not reporting all those issues. When I look at the headlines of most of the media organizations that cover the issue, Debola Daniels, son of the former governor, does he have to be a son of the former governor for his issue to be covered? These are some of the issues that media, but also we also discover over the time too. Let me also affirm that we have also discovered over the time too that media or newsroom, most of them do not have what it takes to adequately report on disability issues in terms of language, in terms of technicalities. And one of the things we do here is to constantly organize disability and inclusion reporting for media organizations so that they are able to cover PWD issue with all sense of ethics and professionalism. We cannot continue to allow PWD to suffer despite all the laws. In Nigeria, we have signed to okay. I'm listening.
Yinka Olaito, we're actually due for a break. Let's go on a quick break. When we return, we'll continue this conversation with Yinka Olaito on people living with disability here in Nigeria and the predicaments they go through. See you after this time out. If you just joined us, this is the conversation reaching you from KAFTAN's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you've actually missed out on a whole lot, but then you can still join in the conversation, as my guest on the show today is Yinka Olaito, who is the Executive Director, Center for Disability and Inclusion Africa. He also doubles as the Executive Director, Africa Foundation for Young Media Professionals. And we've been talking about people living with disability, especially here in Nigeria, what they go through and what can be done to ameliorate the situation. Thank you for still staying with us, Yinka Olaito.
Thank you.
Great. All right, now let me ask you, looking back at the 2023 general election, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest, how would you rate the inclusive activities of the government, the citizens, the electorate, political parties even PWDs, our PWD advocates, just as you, how would you rate their activities during that election? And what can be done to ameliorate that situation, looking at 2027 and 2031 or further subsequent elections?
When we look at 2023 election, in terms of the preparedness to be inclusive, I think it is less than 15% as far as I'm concerned, because even before the election began, PWD community and stakeholder were out there asking the Independent National INEC to do everything possible to include a person with disability. And you know, person with disability challenges vary depending on who you are and what kind of disability or impairment you do have. For instance, the person with disability who has a visual impaired, his need will be different because using the BIFAS and all this part and all that, his need was different. And in most cases, most of them could not actually vote, despite all the attempts and all the brouhaha and all the noise that in the disability community made. Also, person with albinism, before the election, there was campaign around that BIFAS machine do not exactly cover person with albinism because of the nature of their skin. By time, and you know, they need to use their finger, the thumb especially. In most cases, their fingers, because of the texture of their skin, BIFAS cannot take them or identify them. And so we act and we made a lot of noise around that. I remember in Ondo State, a group of albinism stakeholder went to INEC office in Ondo State to say that they do not want to be disenfranchised, and it is not a crime that they are albino, that it's just by nature they are albino. Having a disability is not a crime. And so INEC acknowledged and accepted that they would do something, but unfortunately, in most of the centers, most of the albino could not actually vote. Also, when we talk about a person who live with leprosy, you know, those do not even have thumb at all. Some of them do not even have thumb at all, or fingers, so to say. And therefore, we made a complaint that what do you have to do, since you have to use your thumb as means of identification before you can actually vote. We made, we work with people, well, that subgroup, and they said they will make sure that they can use other finger to actually be accepted before they could vote. You know that there's a BIFAS machine that will help you first of all identify yourself with, and which must capture that you are the person who is the owner of the name, or who bears that name, or the owner of that voter's card. Unfortunately, as many promises were made that people with leprosy will be able to vote, many could not vote because of BIFAS challenges. Also, during the election, I also want to raise with you that the issue of when there's a long queue, you know that a person with disability cannot, should be given a right of way. Meaning that when there's a long queue, it is not even a matter of courtesy. It's a criminal offense to have a long queue and you do not make a right of way for a person with disability to access whatever service it is. Even in hospital, they are not supposed to be on queue. They are supposed to be treated on emergency cases. So when you look at election last year, 2023, excuse me, most of these people who are on or who uses wheelchair, who are wheelchair user or mobility impaired, some of them were subjected to experiences that made some of them to leave because they could not wait for the long queue. And just also remember that in some of these voters center, the INEC official did not come on time. And because somebody on wheelchair cannot stay for long on the same spot, some of them had to use. So for, again, people with visual impairment, some of them could not vote because there was no braille to guide them. And you know that nobody should be with you at the polling booth where you're supposed to cast your vote. And you know that there was no provision for a visually impaired to be able to know what to do and where to press.
All right.
before he or she could vote. So when you look at the challenges, why we are not saying that the election is mad completely, we are talking of inclusion and disenfranchisement of persons with disability. It was very obvious that most of them were not included, they were not thought of, and they were not allowed to vote, and that is discrimination against them.
Ah, all right. So now, if you have, because you talked about inclusion, especially during the election, and then I remember at least a state governor has been able to break one of those jinx that with regards to albinism. One of them, someone who is actually an albino was elected as a governor. And then I know that the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has a special advisor on disabilities. That's Mohammed Abba Issa. So in both, at least this both scenario that I have painted out, is there hope for people living with disability?
Yeah, there's hope. We are not saying there's no hope. In fact, there have been improvement.
Oh,
Because for
okay.
now, at least an average of 26 states out of the 36 states had passed the Disability Act law, which criminalizes discrimination against persons with disability. At least 26, over 26 are passed it, unlike before. And most of those states now have what we call disability agency with different name. And then part of the requirement of that disability bill is the fact that a person with disability should be the head of that agency or established. Interestingly, that's why I would say that has been an improvement. Two, that most of the governors and even the president now have special advisor on disability. That's an improvement. Um, the fact also is there that at the national level, we have a NAFTA Act, which is Discrimination Against Persons with Disability Law 2018 or 2019 that was really signed by President Buhari 2019. But that's also an improvement. We also know that some of the content of that NAFTA Act 2019 is being reviewed because of some of the weakness in that law. That's also an improvement. But that as it may, you can have a law that is written down. You can have a very good document. You know, in Nigeria, we do not lack good documents. It's not just the implementation process that is a problem. In most of the states where we have this disability law enacted and have been passed, how effective are the agencies? In most of the states, based on our experience, because we work across the state, some of the states do not have the agency, disability agency or board are just on paper. Nobody is there. In few of the states where they have a board member or they do not have staff. In some of these states where they have a board member and established office, some do not even have office. In places where there are offices, they are not well staffed. In places where there are staff, sometimes a person with disability that is supposed to be the head of that agency is not there. So how can another person be doing what a person with disability? I remember specifically in the Ekiti state, that is one of the things that we're still talking about. The head of disability agency, their executive secretary, is a female, is a government official that is not a person with disability. And people are shouting there and saying, wait, disability board is supposed to be headed by a person with disability who understands the pain of people with disability. Is in Lagos. Thank God we already have the agency and it is led by a person with disability. But that is Lagos and a few other states like that. So if you say that we've made improvement, yes, a bit, but we are not where we're supposed to be. We must also recognize the fact that in Nigeria, we are signed to African Charter of Person with Right of Person with Disability. We have also signed to United Nations Charter on Human Right of Person with Disability Protocol, which means that we are saying that we will obey and we will follow the rules that are inside that are contained in those charters. Unfortunately, we know that discrimination continues to be order of the day, and that's one of the things that happened to Debola Daniels last week. Discrimination continues to happen. In our hospitals, there should be a special emergency place for a person with disability. Social workers should also be there to attend to person with disability, where we have cases where persons with disability in some states do not even want to access government hospital because the doctors there are not trained to be inclusive. They do not understand sign language, neither could they communicate with a person with disability if you are visually impaired, or if you are hearing impaired, or if you are speech impaired. So you find out that, yes, we have the laws everywhere. We have all the protocols in place. But when it comes to execution, we are far from the reality. We're not there yet. So we are asking the government, yes, we have done all that we should do. Yes, we have all the protocols in place. Yes, we have enacted all the laws that should be enacted. But what about execution? What about monitoring and evaluation to ensure that these things are all captured and that we are not just speaking grammar, we are actually doing or doing what we say we want to do. So one would look at it, yes, there's improvement. Also, by now, 2024, the Data Act 2018 did state that by 2024, all public buildings should be accessible to person, whether you have disability or not. And the fact that no public building should not be accessible. Interestingly, the National Assembly is reviewing that part, which is only said only public building. What about private buildings? What about corporate buildings? What about residential building? Are they all accessible too? So what about service industry buildings, banks, airport? If you go to the airport, the elevator was not working. That was one of the reasons why Debola Daniels want to stay at the ground floor where that service brand was. If the elevator was working and you could actually go to the lounge immediately, it wouldn't consider that option. So the Federal Airport Authority and all the government agencies that actually invoking the law of the discrimination against disability, person with disability, are they also have they done their own work? Now, by 2024, the law says that no building should not be accessible. Yes, we know that the building code also states that you don't need an elevator in a building that is less than 3-story. So, but you should have a ramp that make everybody to access that place. Even in corporate headquarters, in corporate organization headquarters, go and check most of them. Where do we have story building like 5, 6, 8, or 9? Are there guidance for an average visually impaired person that as you access or you come close to the building, there's a prompter that says you're about to hit a wall, please don't do it. We know that for persons without disability, when there's a floor, you know there's some floor, they say be careful of the floor because it is slippery. That is if you can see. If you cannot see, you cannot see that kind of information or guidance on the wall. So there are many issues that we can continue to talk about in Nigeria 2024, despite all the discrimination against persons with disability laws and what have you. So I think that we need to challenge everybody. Also, discrimination against persons with disability happens in the family. Family is the nuclear of is the macro part of the society. In most families where we have persons with disability, except the ones that are advanced or knowledgeable or are educated, go and see how a person with disability is treated. One will be sorry to be a person with disability. And sometimes I agree with what Debola Daniels said, that to be a disabled in Nigeria, according to his word, we don't use disabled, we just say impaired person. But according to Debola Daniels' word, he said to be a disabled in Nigeria is to be undesirable, to be unwelcome, and it's a scary and lonely place. I think that we should begin to challenge that. Every stakeholder should be able to challenge that stereotype that being a disabled is not a sin, and that you should do what you're supposed to do.
All right, so because you talked about the family, the government, and all, now let's stay on that, because we already know that morality, most people are not even thought about morality or what is right or what is wrong. Now, you talked about what the government should do. I was going to ask with regards to when the government is building any organization, even bridges, buildings, the need to have ramps and all of these signs to help people living with disability. But then you go to families also. How much is it important? From what stage should the parents be teaching their children on how to respect other people, be it those with disability or not? I'll give you an example. I have a guest who has a daughter, a 12-year-old daughter living with cerebral palsy. And anytime she takes her daughter out, it is even parents themselves that would bully the child and even tell their children, don't go close to her because she has one evil thing or the other that their parents must have done. So many dirty words coming from parents themselves. So if we are talking about what the government should do in terms of putting ramps in bridges and vehicles and buildings, how about parents? How would you start teaching, or at what point should you be teaching your children and even learn for yourself that you should respect other people?
Yeah, thank you for that question. One thing I want us to also pay attention to, like I said, ignorance. Because people do not know. And then people think that having a disability is contagious because of strong, strange, and erroneous beliefs that we've carried over the years. I share with you my childhood that you just want to go out and you just want to go out like normal person, just go out and come back without harassment or any form of harassment. You find adults staring at you. That's a form of harassment. So in most of the in Nigeria particularly, we have this negative perception about person with disability. We also think that moving close to a person with disability will make you become
it's
one.
Contagious.
It's contagious. Yeah, there are some that are contagious, maybe tuberculosis or something, but it is not. Visual impairment is not contagious. Mobility challenge is not contagious. And in fact, we are all human. We as human beings, we are just one accident away from being a person with disability. Because some of the people who use wheelchair today or mobility impaired, they were not born like that. Some have acquired disability. So if you understand this, that's where I think the role of National Commission for Persons with Disability, National Orientation Agency, where they need to play their role, educate, inform the people that having people with disability, when they see one, they should respect them. And in fact, sometimes persons with disability complain that when they go out, people just want to dash them money. I remember I saw that kind of thing before, where when you were going as a teenager, they just say, somebody will just pull a dirty note of 20 naira or 10 naira and give you, thinking that you may be a beggar or something around the corner. That's harassment. And many of them do feel that that's not proper, that that I'm moving, I'm not bent, so why are you giving me? And when you're even offering something, you're offering a 10 naira dirty notes, as if you are doing the person a form of harm or something, an act of mercy. So we discovered that in most cases, most parents are not even educated, they are not even aware. And therefore, I think that National Commission for Persons with Disability, National Orientation Agency need to do a lot of work to educate the society. In fact, some parents of persons with disability are not even proud of them. I'm happy to be, I'm so grateful to God that I have a mother and friends, siblings who love me with everything in their heart. So I will not say that I have a person with disability per se, because I can see I can function, because what we call disability is something that makes you, that make it impossible to function like a normal human being. And for me, there's nothing that has made me impossible to function like a normal member that I can see, I can write, I can jump around, and I can do a lot of it. But I was talking with somebody who was visually impaired from birth, and he said, "Hey, Yinka Olaito, your case is better. You can see. I haven't been able to see from birth. You understand?" And that the kind of harassment, and this guy is a lawyer.
All right.
You understand what I mean? A trained lawyer, not that He knew what he went through to actually acquire education, for be a visually impaired in Nigeria and become a lawyer. And the challenge is some of the educated PWD are saying, wait, visual impairment is not a contagious disease. Don't just run away. Don't,
All
you know
right.
the way some people will run away, or the children will run away, or they will stay feel it's an embarrassment. And that is also discrimination. That's also harassment.
All
People
right.
need to know that these are harassment.
All right, let's conclude on this conversation. Yinka Olaito, if you look at the SDG Goal 10, it says strive to reduce inequality within and among countries by empowering and promoting the social, economic, and political inclusion of all, including persons with disability. Now, Goal 11 went on to say that would work to make cities and human settlement inclusive, safe, and sustainable. And there is a timeline to these goals. We're in 2023, and all of this, the SDG goals is we're looking at 2030. That's like barely 6 years. Now, let me ask you, finally, on the final note, Yinka Olaito, do you see a world free from discrimination, bullying against people living with disability? And what is that first step or that first foot forward that we need to take?
Yeah, thank you, Annabelle. Let me say I'm an incurable optimist. I see a world that is inclusive and that is a society that is sustainable and bring everybody together, because that is where we can get all the benefits. But seeing it does not mean there is going to be the reality of it. We must work towards it. Every stakeholder must work towards it. Person with disability, person without disability, government actors and non-government actors. If we are going to achieve that, you remember that prior to SDG goal, we have the other goal. I say by 2020, and I'm sure that if you're I'm a bit older at that time, they say by 2000 Y2K, everything will be. How many of those goals were actually achieved by the time we came to the end of that goal? So we are now working with SDG, Sustainable Development Goal. I'm wholly hoping that everybody will strive, in particularly in Africa, where we are still far behind. I want to challenge government actors, non-government actors, that we should strive to do this. In terms of how far we have gone, I think we're still far from building an inclusive society. Though all of us are talking about it, and we like the grammar that are associated, that come with it: inclusive society, sustainable society. But beyond the grammar and all the fanfare that we do yearly, I mean, to celebrate each development goal, what are these actions that we are taking consistently to show that we are actually, the world or Nigeria at large is preparing for an inclusive and sustainable development by 2030? I
All
think
right.
we should put more effort in those places than just singing SDG goal. We will not achieve it like other goal that we set at the global level if we do not do anything concrete, or we are not systematic about it.
Thank you so much, Yinka Olaito, Executive Director, Center for Disability and Inclusion Africa, and also Executive Director, Africa Foundation for Young Media Professionals. It's been a wonderful time having this conversation with you.
Thank you, Annabelle. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you, listener. Have the best of the day.
Great. Likewise. All right, I'm sure you must have been rightly educated, entertained, and informed. Self-respect, self-regard, and I'll take the quote from this one is from Christopher Reeve. He is an American actor, film director, author, and activist. He once said that a hero is an ordinary individual who finds the strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles. And also, Sir Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill, who was a British statesman, soldier, and writer, served as a Prime Minister of the United Kingdom twice. He once said that if you are going through hell, keep going. And why he said so is because there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm not talking to only people living with disability. I'm talking to everyone. Regardless of what you're facing, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And like my guest, Olaito Yinka, said, he sees the cup as half full rather than half empty. Be optimistic that regardless of whatever it is you're going through, there's always a light at the end of this tunnel. Thank you so much for listening. The most important part of this program or this edition of the conversation is just to teach people, teach all of us that we must have self-respect and they respect other people regardless of their race, their color, their gender, or their abilities or their disability. My name is Annabelle Oji. Thank you for watching. God bless you and yours, and God bless Nigeria.